You have sacrificed enough under this Liberal government. You don't have to live like this. Your suffering today is not your fault. It was imposed on you by your Liberal government.
A new report has given Ottawa a D in fiscal accountability. The timing of this report is just really something, isn't it? That obviously stands for Don't Trust Us with Your Money. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, like, follow, and comment your thoughts down below. Share this video as well so more Canadians can get the full story. I've never heard somebody contradict themselves so many times in a single national address. What a disaster. Pierre Poilievre had a press conference earlier today where he fact-checked Mark Carney using his own words. You know, when even CBC admits that your policies breed dependence, you've officially lost the propaganda war.
Our public square is fragmented by online echo chambers, where truth and fiction can be hard to tell apart, and where contrasting ideas tend to polarize, not persuade.
Wow, I should really have a full cup of coffee before I get into this today. It's interesting to hear Mark Carney talk about online echo chambers, right? What does that mean? What does that mean? Yeah, of course, we all want to have access to information. You know, I think that CBC's own testimony in committee over the last couple of days is pretty telling as to what exactly it is that he is referring to.
In our last round of conversations, Madame Bouchard, you made mention of your social media strategy. Obviously, thanks to C-18, which was ill-advised public policy, Meta is no longer a functional place to share news. But CBC has made a decision to stay on X. Many of your reporters are on Blue Sky. CBC is not on Blue Sky. Nor are you on Mastodon, which I would argue is probably the best fit for a national public broadcaster. So I'm wondering if you could explain to me, why are you still on X, which has become a site of primarily very right-wing and quite hateful content? Why are you not on Blue Sky, where most of the Canadian political conversation is taking place? And have you considered a Mastodon strategy, such as starting an instance on Mastodon, which the CBC could curate, which would give people a non-commercial, non-American-owned platform to share news?
According to their own website, Senator Paula Simons was appointed to Senate in 2018. You'll never guess by who. And she has actually been a CBC radio producer, documentary maker, a playwright, and a popular historian. So that just gives you a little bit of background info on the lady wearing a mask asking that question. I can't even fathom being in committee and having the audacity to say, CBC, you guys are on X. That is such a hateful, far right-leaning platform. It's actually not. There's a lot of people who are on the left and people who are apolitical on there as well. I see it constantly in my feed. I don't really know that I see a lot of hateful stuff. I guess it depends who you follow and what you're searching for. So that comment may be a bigger reflection of herself than it is of what the general public on X is actually posting about. And then to say, you guys should really be on Blue Sky, because that's where like all of the political conversation is happening. And it's not far right or hateful. It's just far left, and it's totally not an echo chamber, because being far left isn't a bad thing, despite all of the very violent statistics. Alrighty then. It's actually interesting. I just typed into Google Blue Sky and conservative, and the AI overview gave me that Blue Sky is not a platform favored by conservatives, as adoption has been heavily concentrated among liberal and left-leaning users. Some reports indicating a lack of conservative presence. Some conservatives have joined and faced issues like abuse and censorship, leading to the perception that the platform may be hostile to their views. Again, just going to clarify this. They're perfectly legal democratic views. Okay, let's have that be the underlying with all of these types of conversations.
Mr. Speaker, there's no I in team, but apparently there's an I in conservative. Oh! Team in conservative. There's a team on these benches.
Also, very important to keep in your back pocket when you're thinking about these things, that these same liberals who now preach about echo chambers have spent years demonizing half the country, calling truckers extremists, calling farmers polluters, calling parents bigots, trying to get children not to trust their parents but to trust the state. They have manufactured the division, and now they're using that division to justify expanding censorship. Come on, who's falling for this at this point in time? And when Mark Carney says echo chambers, he doesn't mean the legacy media echo chambers that they have been benefiting from for at least the last decade. He's referring to you. People like you, people like me, independent voices, podcasters, YouTubers, people on X. This was a soft launch of a narrative control management campaign. And really, the motive here is centralized control of information flow. The fact that he even said that at all while talking about the budget is beyond me.
I'll give you an example. Last night's speech talked about maintaining some of the recent additions to the social safety net in this country. You think of the new dental plan, the National School Food Program, some commitments made to maintain those. But it said nothing about continuing to expand federal pharmacare spending. That's going to be of concern for advocates on that front. At times, this speech seemed to be preconditioning Canadians to accept that some of what Liberals may have promised in the past isn't going to be possible now.
Does anybody else remember the constant smear campaigns, especially leading up to an election, when Conservatives say the same things? When Conservatives say we can't afford to have a top-down approach to all of these social services that make us dependent on the government and hurt taxpayers even more, instead of just letting our economy thrive and people be able to afford things and pay for their life on their own with some dignity, not needing government intervention to do so. Oh, wow, Conservatives, you guys are so evil and nasty and mean. You hate grandma, you hate kids, you hate single moms. Nope, we don't. And now the Liberals are saying the exact same thing, and I haven't seen any smear campaigns yet. Wonder if I will, but I am not going to hold my breath.
How do you think the delivery of that speech matched up to what you thought it should be about?
Imperfect. Look, it showcased the Prime Minister's comfort and ease when it comes to articulating geopolitical issues, macroeconomic issues, the big forces that are shaping and reshaping our world right now, his easy command of policy matters, his comfort. But if the purpose of the speech was to tell us what we need to know unmistakably about the budget, what its anchoring priorities are, the key takeaways from the budget that will come down on November 4th, I'm not certain I understood what he was trying to tell us. I mean, is it about doubling trade to countries other than the United States over the course of the next decade? That's what the budget's about. Is it about balancing an operating deficit, which is a brand new concept that wasn't defined in the speech and is not defined in any objective sense, and why that matters and how that's an engine for growth? It was in front of a group of students. We were told this was going to be about on a generational appeal. I didn't hear anything that seemed, in the most narrow sense, the most sort of tactical sense, targeted toward that audience. So I still don't know, is this budget going to be about austerity, about sacrifices? Is it about dealing with Trump and trade? Is it going to be dealing with growth? I am not crystal clear on what the Prime Minister wanted us to understand about the budget that's coming, and he took 30 minutes to not tell me it.
I'm not going to make you sit through Mark Carney's consistent fear-mongering and moral superiority, virtue signaling nonsense that has gotten us absolutely nowhere, but I will tell you the key points that he emphasized that are nothing new to us and still have not been explained any further. Generational investments, sacrifices. He says he pledged to double non-U.S. exports in the next decade. That's funny.
Over the next 10 years to the tune, I think he said $300 billion. Is that realistic in your view?
If you get some pipelines built, our single biggest net export by far is oil and gas. And the only way you get oil and gas to non-U.S. markets is by getting pipelines to Tidewater. So we're now 7 months into Mark Carney's term. He still won't even tell us if he supports a pipeline to Tidewater. You know, he was asked point blank the other day whether he would allow a pipe to go from Hardisty to Prince Rupert or Kitimat, whether he would allow shipping of the said oil from the coast to Asia, and he refused to answer. So this is 7 months in, and it's not just that there's no construction or no permit, it's that there's not even a commitment that one day he would support such a thing. So I don't know, other than pixie dust, what he expects to export overseas if he's going to block the major infrastructure projects that are necessary to get our most valuable resources to the biggest and most lucrative non-American markets. He needs to do one simple thing if we're going to diversify our trade overseas. Get out of the way. Get out of the way, let builders build, workers work, and resources travel.
He emphasized yet again that the relationship with the United States is over, because that's been going so very well for us.
The world is more dangerous and divided. The U.S., as we all know, has fundamentally changed its approach to trade. It's raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. And the scale and the speed of these developments are not part of a smooth transition, they're a rupture. And they mean that our economic strategy needs to change dramatically. Our relationship with the United States will never again be the same as it was, even though in this new world of protectionism, we have the best trade deal of any other country, and we're working to make it even better still.
He talked an awful lot about the new climate competitiveness strategy, because nothing says we are going to leapfrog our economy by doing the same things that other countries are starting to pull out of because it's not economically viable or sustainable. But it is very good for those who have founded a lot of these types of organizations, and for those who have been lobbying governments for this sort of stuff for decades, dare I say, perhaps looking into Diana Fox Carney, Mark Carney's wife. In 2013 was when she first got involved on paper with lobbying the Canadian government, either legally or just by influence. His daughter Cleo was also very much involved in that. And of course, we know Mark Carney is very openly involved in that too. His new direction, though, after, it's the United States' fault that our decades-long economic model is over, is that he wants a globally integrated, carbon-priced, finance-driven economy under his favorite talking point, of course, which is resilience. What's really happening, though, is a repositioning of Canada from an independent producer to a compliant service hub, one that answers to global climate financiers and international institutions and trade blocs dominated by unelected elites. And, let's just go through some of the facts here. First and foremost, the math. Right now, Canada's trade with the U.S. sits at about $762 billion a year, which is nearly twice our combined trade with every other country on Earth. So abandoning that or undermining it, as he continues to do, is not a strategy at all. Nope, that is another word that starts with an S that I don't like to say.
I'm worried personally that, the budget's all going to be about supports. And it's great to have supports, but that creates a dependency economy, which we don't want. Canadians want to work. Canadians want to have a strong economic foundation. And he's really got to demonstrate how his plan is going to bring that to effect. And at the same time, we also have some inflation numbers yesterday that didn't look good either, right? Showing that food inflation is up, rental accommodation inflation is up. And so that is also putting concerns about recessionary pressures.
We also have the Trump factor. And why I think it's so important to talk about that one is that Trump's America First doctrine is really an existential threat to what Mark Carney is trying to do and his entire model. Trump wants bilateral trade and domestic production. Carney wants multilateral frameworks and transnational compliance. While this could certainly sound a little conspiratorial or dystopian, I really do think it's important to, at the very least, think about where I'm going with this one, because every single thing that Mark Carney has done to distance Canada from the USA, which is just insanity, it really is not irrational. I don't think, actually. I believe that he's protecting the architecture he is building. Trump's policies expose all of the weaknesses of Carney's models. And the moment that countries start acting in their own interests, global coordination, compliance, control, all of that collapses. And for Carney to keep Canada tied to an EU-style climate-linked system, that's not about economics at all. It's about locking in an ideology. By Carney rejecting bilateralism, that makes Canada reliant on the global consensus, that same global consensus that has been lobbied and pushing for the same things that Mark Carney wrote his entire book, Values, about, that he was very much a part of. He is the baby daddy of so much of all of that insanity. He's gotten filthy rich from it, right? And so then you're a nation built on consensus, not on negotiating power, which is exactly how global governance solidifies. If you accept the manufactured decline strategy, it's pretty clear that, you know, all of this stagnation, all of this loss in growth and profits is not accidental, and distancing us from the United States actually makes perfect sense to that model, because the US represents free enterprise, free markets, cheap energy, a competitive advantage, right? All things that make citizens much harder to control. But by cutting off access to that prosperity model, by villainizing it so frequently.
He doesn't sound like he's sloganeering, and that he sounds authentic because he's actually explaining things in a real way. And I think that there's a huge appetite for that. And that's in stark contrast to the communication style that you see from Pierre Poilievre, who is all slogans and really doesn't get into depth on almost anything.
It's between oopsies, my bad. I meant to say Pierre Poilievre. Oh gosh, I just got them confused, even though they're literally nothing alike. Like, bro. Stop. That was so cringy. I can't even believe that actually aired. I can't believe he did that on purpose and thought that it was a good move. And it probably was. There's probably people who are going, yeah, see, they're so similar. Meanwhile, Mark Carney and Donald Trump have way more in common than Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump do. Are you kidding me? Oh my God. Carney then ensures that Canadians remain inside a very much managed decline system where Ottawa, not the market, decides the outcomes. That is something that we have been experiencing under this version of a Liberal government for the last 10 or so years. So if you keep GDP growth low, wealth distribution high, dependency really does become normalized. And that is the ideal environment for centralized power. It really is. And some of, even, let's fact check this actually, now that I think of it, the double standard that exists. Carney calls Donald Trump's tariffs unjustified. Meanwhile, his own policies, that of the Liberal government, of which he was very involved in prior to being elected for at least 5 years, it drove $49.5 billion of investment out of our country. And that is just since Mark Carney took office. It's pushed energy prices and corporate taxes higher than any other G7 nation. Let's not forget that. And blocked major infrastructure projects in the name of climate alignment. So don't be sitting here giving me a sermon about Donald Trump's unjustified tariffs that are hurting us right now, because they barely actually make a dent. And to that, Pierre Poilievre, wow, did he ever just rip the Band-Aid off to let that wound breathe a little bit when he had his press conference about it earlier today.
But instead of acknowledging all of those sacrifices and promising to reverse them, Mr. Carney doubles down on all the policies that caused them. The inflationary deficits that were left behind by the previous Liberal government, he's doubled them. He's increased spending on bureaucracy and consultants, all of which is driving inflation up even higher than it was before he took office. In fact, food price inflation is almost double the Bank of Canada's target, which means our young people are now forced to downgrade their diets and line up at food banks. We see paychecks are now under attack. While the first 10 years of Liberal government deprived our youth of home ownership, now it's depriving them of jobs. Youth employment numbers are now the worst in a generation, as the government blocks jobs with high taxes and anti-development laws, and allows multinational corporations to give those jobs away to the temporary foreign worker program, meaning countless young people are not able to even find a paycheck, let alone a place to live. My message to Canadian youth is this: you have sacrificed enough under this Liberal government. You don't have to live like this. We can turn the hurt of the last decade into the hope of the future, and we have a plan to do it. That plan will unlock free enterprise so that you get ahead through your hard work and entrepreneurship, not through political connections. By lowering income taxes, you'll keep more of your hard-earned paycheck. By getting rid of inflationary deficit spending, those dollars you earn, they will once again go further and preserve their value. We will clear the bureaucracy and taxes so that builders can build homes that you can afford, and we will get the federal government out of the way to build mines, so that the private sector can build mines, pipelines, ports, and countless other major projects that will create $2,000 a year jobs for our young trades workers right across this country, and you will live in safety because we will scrap liberal bail, we will lock up serious criminals, we will restore the best immigration system in the world that is based on common sense. That is how we will restore the promise to which you are entitled, which your ancestors all enjoyed. You deserve it. Your suffering today is not your fault. It was imposed on you by your Liberal government. But we can change these things, we can build the brighter future, and that is the hopeful message that I hope that you will join us in delivering and bringing to bear. Thank you.
They broke Canada and called it compassion, and then villainized and name-called everybody who commented on Canada being broken, because statistically it is by just about every single data set that exists. They buried the truth, they called that transparency, and then they villainized and name-called everybody who tried to talk about the truth, and now they're even wanting to get us off the internet. And now they're also rewriting sovereignty, so that sovereignty means submission to people that we don't even know who live across the pond, which is pretty fascinating. You know, Canadians aren't anxious right now because we're weak. I think we're anxious right now because so many of us know that the people who are in charge are lying and trying to blame us for the problem. And that right there is exactly why this country is about to wake up. Big time. And I am really of the belief that anybody at all who defends Mark Carney's budget, who defends the social services, the social assistance that they're trying to get the entire nation hooked on, I don't think that they're morally superior to me. I don't think that they know something that I don't. I think that they hate us. That is the only rationale that I can find for why anybody in their right mind would continue to make excuses for incompetence, would continue to ignore these very important things, and would continue to tell people who are voicing their concerns of how much their life has changed in a negative way, how unsafe they feel, how poor they are, that they continue to try to say to them, oh, well, you know, you're just not saving enough money. Oh, it's not the Liberals' fault. No. Oh, well, what about Stephen Harper? They hate us. That's what that means. There is nothing in this world that would drive you to commit such vile acts on your neighbors. And by neighbors, I mean fellow Canadians, communities, not the United States here. But there is nothing at all that would drive you to act with so much malicious intent, to lie so frequently, to be so disingenuous, than hatred. That is the only thing that would justify what they are doing to us. And I don't know about you, but I'd say enough is enough. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, like, follow, and comment your thoughts down below. Share this video as well, and I will talk to you tomorrow.